By the end of this video, you're going to understand reactive abuse, what it is and how it works, as well as answer the question, am I the narcissist? Once and for all. So stick around. I've got a lot of good stuff for you today. Hi friends, Tamie, I'm Joyce here, empowerment life coach, creator of the Freedom class and the Ascension class. And if you're new to my channel, welcome. Please take a second to say hello and introduce yourself in the comments section below. And if you're back, welcome back. Thanks for showing up and for tuning in. Either way, be sure to subscribe and hit that bell to be notified when I post new videos throughout the week. So let's talk about reactive abuse as it relates to narcissistic abuse. And let's answer the question once and for all as to whether or not your reaction to being abused makes you the narcissist. First of all, what is reactive abuse and how does it work? Well, reactive abuse is a common gaslighting manipulation tactic that places blame for the abuse on the abused. And let's be real. In any situation where one person abuses or otherwise targets another, sooner or later the person being targeted will naturally react. Now, depending on a few factors, like, for example, the severity and longevity of the abuse, what's at stake as a result of the abuse, in other words, what the potential consequences are or what negative impact the abuse could be having on the targeted's life, as well as depending on their personal tolerance level, or lack thereof, when it comes to being targeted by an empathy-impaired emotional manipulator. All of this plays a part in whether or not the abused person reacts, as well as the intensity of their reaction, whether or not their reaction is what I call high voltage. And when a super empath is involved, high voltage can mean nuclear, scorched earth, the supernova kind of reaction. It's not pretty, but it sure gets the point across. Now, when this happens, the narcissistic person doing the lying, manipulating, gaslighting, targeting, and abusing to begin with finds themselves on the receiving end of an attack. Shocking, I know. And the more toxic they've been, the more intense the attack is likely to be. Why? Because the target has been pushed, poked, and provoked into self-preservation and self-protection mode. It's instinctual. What happens then is the destructive narcissist will claim that the individual they've been targeting or otherwise abusing, the person who in reality is acting in self-defense, is the toxic and abusive one. This is a type of gaslighting called reactive abuse. After doing and saying vile, hurtful things, behaving badly, then claiming to have no ever-loving idea what your problem or issue is, while also claiming that you are obviously the problem or issue, and doing so repeatedly until you finally react, the narcissist will then claim to anyone who will listen that they're the victim. He or she just reacted out of nowhere. I have no idea why. I have no idea why he or she is so mad, why they lashed out the way they did, why they become so unglued. Please, with the bullshit already. Now here's the thing. Not always, but often enough, the problem with this is this complete another bullshit game that the narcissist is running can trigger a serious shame response in the person who is being targeted or otherwise abused. And as a result, it's not at all uncommon for targets who don't know any better to question whether or not they're the narcissist. So let me cut to the chase here and answer this question for you right up front. Reacting to being targeted or abused on any level does not qualify you as a person with a destructive narcissist personality pattern. And this is true even if you lash out with tremendous intensity, verbal abuse, and emotional violence, after being pushed, poked, and provoked to the point of feeling the need to fight back and defend yourself in the face of toxic emotional manipulation, perpetual gaslighting, lies and deception, or any other form of targeting. This does not make you a narcissist. This makes you a human being who has feelings and limits with regards to how much you're willing to put up with or take from a lying, deceiving, manipulative, extremely self-absorbed and self-centered person who feels entitled to target you on any level. Let me be clear. What qualifies a person as having a destructive narcissist personality pattern is not their reaction to abuse. What qualifies a person with a destructive narcissist personality pattern is their lack of empathy, conscience, and remorse, in particular with regard to the negative impact their actions, non-action, attitudes, delusional thinking, and toxic behavior are having on you and the quality of your life. What qualifies a person as having a destructive narcissist personality pattern is their sense of entitlement, their extreme self-absorption. Only their experience matters. Your experience doesn't even occur to them, doesn't even register on their radar, unless, of course, it serves them somehow. But even then, if you stay out of denial and you're paying attention to what they do and say, as well as what they do not do and do not say, pay attention to that, and you'll see exactly just how entitled and self-absorbed they are. Maybe not immediately, but soon enough, they give themselves away in a myriad of ways. Why? Because they're so selfish, self-centered, and self-absorbed. They don't even realize the extent to which they tell on themselves all day long. Furthermore, what qualifies a person with having a destructive narcissist personality pattern is the ease with which they lie when it matters as well as when it doesn't matter. In other words, little white lies, big blatant lies, and lies by omission. What qualifies a person as a destructive narcissist is how manipulative they are. The lengths to which they go to manipulate the perceptions of others is a really good example of this. In other words, how hard they work to convince others they're something they fundamentally are not. Like, for example, a good, decent, kind, caring person. And as an empath, you know this when in the presence of a destructive narcissist. You know you're dealing with a highly manipulative and deceptive false persona because your skin will crawl. Even if you can't quite put your finger on why, it does. Now, does any of this sound like you? No? Good. Let's continue. People who land on the spectrum of destructive narcissism would never even consider questioning whether or not they're in the wrong in any way, never mind whether or not they're a narcissist. So, if you're asking yourself that question with any feeling of guilt, shame, or remorse, you, my friend, do not qualify as a person who lands on the spectrum of destructive narcissism. But if you're still not convinced and you want to go deeper into the question of whether or not you're the narcissist, you can watch this video here. Now comment below and let me know whether or not you've ever had a narcissist use reactive abuse to gaslight you into questioning whether or not you're the actual narcissist. Let me know in the comments section below. Also, if you're struggling with narcissistic abuse in any area of your life, you're likely an excellent candidate for my 8-week transformational coaching program, the Freedom Class. If that's of interest to you, there's a link in the description below where you can apply to see if you qualify for a free one-on-one consultation with either myself or a member of my team. Now, with all of that said, in my view, there's no shame in calling out an abuser and letting them have it, especially if you're doing so in self-defense. So long as you're sure you're not putting yourself or anyone else who might be vulnerable in harm's way, like defenseless animals, children, or the elderly. You're a human being with feelings and limits with regard to how much abuse you can endure, and that's a good thing. There's no shame in standing up for yourself and letting the narcissist know that A, you're not having it, and B, you see right through them and know exactly what they are. Anyone who tells you otherwise is deluded. They are not only enabling the narcissist, they are gaslighting you, period. If destructive narcissists and toxic bullies actually had to experience more pushback and discomfort for the relationship crimes they commit with such ease, they might actually have to modify their behavior. But don't hold your breath. You letting them have it might be cathartic and may also get the message across, but it isn't likely to inspire any change in these toxic little creatures. They rather enjoy the games they get up to. They rather enjoy baiting a target for no other reason than to set you up for reactive abuse. And on that note, if you want to learn more about narcissistic baiting, you can watch this video here. Now, I think it goes without saying that toxic behaviors aren't good, no matter who's doing the reacting or why. even if the reaction is in response to being narcissistically targeted and abused. We have to take radical responsibility for ourselves and our lives. So don't get me wrong here and take what I'm saying out of context. I'm not giving you a pass on lashing out at anyone simply because you feel entitled to. The reality is, if someone has the capacity to behave in such a way as to trigger an intense negative emotional reaction in you as a result of their abusive way of showing up in the relationship dynamic, and then adding insult to injury by blame shifting and making you the issue or the problem, your job is to take care of yourself. And when it comes to taking care of yourself with someone who lands on the spectrum of destructive narcissism, your best bet is always going to be, at the very least, using the gray rock method and distance to your advantage. Go low contact until you can establish absolute no contact. Then deal with whatever it is that's going on inside of you that needs to be dealt with. If you have an encounter with a destructive narcissist who triggers a negative reaction in you, and you can walk away intact, being able to see them, yourself, in the situation with crystal clear clarity, your sense of self-love and self-esteem aren't negatively affected, you're good. But if you feel shame, guilt, or worse yet, some level of self-loathing, especially if intensely so, then you have healing and recovery work to do. That is the bottom line truth of it, my friend. We're all human, and reacting to narcissistic abuse can not only give the narcissist the ammunition they think they need to paint you in a negative light, which, depending on where you're at, you may or may not even care about, but more importantly, it can also bring up all kinds of negative feelings within and about ourselves when we haven't done our work. When we're not standing firmly rooted and grounded in our own personal identity, sure of who we are and all the good that we carry, reactive abuse can take us out and annihilate whatever's left of our self-esteem. When we've done our healing and recovery work, however, whether or not we react, we're bulletproof in the face of narcissistic manipulation, gaslighting, and abuse. There isn't a single thing they or their enabling entourage can say to or about us that lands or has any impact whatsoever. And that, my friend, is a beautiful place to be. How can Tamie M Coaching help you? 4 ways. Number 1, subscribe to my channel and click that notification bell to make sure you get my new video every Friday. Number 2, watch my free web class by clicking on the link in the description below. You'll learn about my personal journey and professional experience through decades of research specific to healing and recovery from codependency and narcissistic abuse. You'll also learn about some powerful strategies that you can begin to use today. Number 3, if you're not sure where to start, but you want to come and learn from my team and you'd like to be supported by a stellar community of like-minded people who are focused on solutions that actually work, you can learn more about my 8-week transformational coaching program, the Freedom Class, by going to www.tamiemcoaching.com and clicking on programs and reviews for all the details. And number 4, if you want some help right now because you've got a burning issue, you need something solved, you want to break free from painful relationship patterns permanently and actually make lasting progress in your healing and recovery, go to tamiemcoaching.com and click on Apply Now to learn how you can become my client.